Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Surya Raut, and today we are going to discuss about the ISAT practice test number 1. Okay, so let us look at the first question. What does the first question talks about? It talks about the fact that an organism is called a saprophyte when it depends on. Okay, so before answering this question, we need to understand what are saprophytes. Okay, we know that this is the mode of nutrition. Okay, organisms can be classified as autotrophic or they can be classified as heterotrophic. Autotrophic are the group of organisms which can make their own food. For example, green plants, they can synthesize their own food by using the chlorophyll pigment which is present in them. So they can make their own food, so that is why they are called as autotrophic. Whereas heterotrophic organisms, they cannot prepare their own food. They depend on other organisms for their food. So when they depend on other organisms, the other organisms could be a living organism or it could be a non-living matter. So when organisms depend on a living organism for deriving nutrition, they are called as parasitic. They are called as parasitic organisms. But when they are dependent on non-living matter for deriving their nutrition, it would be called, they would be called as saprophytic organisms. Okay. So saprophytic, they depend on non-living matter. Parasitic organisms depend on another living organism for deriving nutrition. So let us look at the choices. The choice 1 says that they depend on living organisms for deriving nutrition. That cannot be true because we have already discussed that if they depend on living organisms, they would be called as parasitic. So this option then gets cancelled out. Okay. What is the next choice? Depends on non-living matter to derive nutrition. Yes, this can be correct. So this is the correct answer. Let's look at the third option, both A and B. So if we choose both A and B, that means they are dependent on both living organisms as well as non-living organisms. So this is also incorrect. Sometimes living organism and sometimes on dead matter depending on the availability. No, we are talking exclusively the fact that they depend on the non-living matter for deriving their nutrition, and that is how they are called as saprophytic organisms. So this is also not the correct option. So the correct option therefore is going to be A. So let us look at the next question. So the next question talks about lichens are organisms containing what? We know that lichens are a separate group of organism. As you can look at this particular picture here, okay. So they are made up of two different group of organisms. Okay, what are those? If you look at this picture here, let me just zoom a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, so they have a algal partner and they have a fungal partner in this relationship, because they are present together in a relationship where there is a algal partner is present and there is a fungal partner is present. The fungal partner of the lichen is called as mycobiont. Okay, myco means fungus. Okay, so this is the fungal partner which is called as the mycobiont, and the algal partner is called as the phycobiont. Okay, the fungal partner provides the necessary shelter as well as they also provide the moisture and the water to the algal partner to carry out the process of photosynthesis. And the algal partner produces the food due to photosynthesis, and give that food to the fungal partner for their survival. So therefore, they live in together happily, okay, and that kind of relationship is called as a mutualistic relationship or symbiotic relationship, okay, and this phenomenon is called as symbiosis because they are living in together through a mutual association, okay. So the options, those are given here, bacteria and fungus, no. Fungus and algae, yes, this option is therefore going to be the correct option, okay. Let us look at the next question. Okay, this is a very interesting question. This talks about the stomata opening is regulated by guard cells, mesophyll cells, epidermal cells, or subsidiary cells, okay. We know that stomata, as you can see in this picture over here, are mostly present on the lower surface of the leaf, okay, and they are present to facilitate the process of gaseous exchange as well as to facilitate the process of transpiration, okay, so that the water can evaporate in the form of water vapor from the surface of the leaf, okay. So stomata does two different functions, helps in the gaseous exchange, okay, right. Okay, so they help in the exchange of gas and water vapor. Okay, as you can look at the picture of the stomata, the opening is actually guarded by two cells. Okay, here the cell 1 here and the cell 2 over here. Okay, and these cells, as they act as a guard to facilitate the process of diffusion, because either carbon dioxide is coming inside or the oxygen is going outside or the water is moving outside. So that facilitates the process of diffusion, as the helps in the diffusion, and that is why they are called as guard cells. And the opening and the closing of the guard cells are dependent on the factor, very typical factor, that is called as the turgidity. What is turgidity? When water will move into the guard cells, what will happen? The guard cells is going to swell, because as the water will go inside that, the guard cells are going to be swell. The swelling of the guard cells will pull the outer membrane of the guard cells, outer cell wall of the guard cells, slightly away from each other. Okay, this one will come this side and this one will also come this side, and that is how they are going to create a opening, and this opening is called as the stoma. Okay, and through this stomata or stomatal pore, what will happen? The diffusion of gases is going to take place. Okay, so the answer that is going to be here is the guard cells, because guard cells are the cells that help facilitate the opening as well as the closing of the stomata. And when the guard cells become flaccid, okay, that means there are no more turgid. Okay, so what will happen in that case? The stomatal pore is going to be reduced or decreased, or it will not be there at all. Okay, and what will happen in this case? The diffusion of gases is going to be reduced or completely stop. Okay, so let us move to the next question. Which of the following makes a dark blue colored complex when reacts with iodine? Okay, the choices which are given are glucose, starch, cellulose and fructose. As we know, these are all different kind of sugars. Okay, these are all different kind of sugars. So glucose is a monosaccharide. Okay, that contains a single unit of sugar. Starch is a polysaccharide. It contains different monomers, because suppose if this is just one sugar unit, so starch will have a multiple different sugar units, which are actually glucose molecules. Okay. Cellulose, that is also a polymer of glucose. Fructose is a disaccharide. It is also a monosaccharide, okay, but it's slightly different from that of the glucose. Okay. So this is a monosaccharide, fructose is a monosaccharide, whereas starch and cellulose are polysaccharide. Okay. The only polysaccharide that reacts with iodine is the starch. Why is that? Because starch is arranged in a helical format like this. Okay, as you can look at the structure here, so the starch would be arranged in a helical manner. Okay, so these are glucose molecules. So these glucose molecules will be linked like this, and they will be all arranged in this helical pattern. All these would be glucose molecules. Okay, and due to the helical pattern of this molecule, what will happen? The iodine molecule is going to be entrapped in the helix of the starch. As they are going to be entrapped in the helix of the starch, so therefore they are going to give a dark blue colored complex. They are going to form a dark blue colored complex. So therefore the answer of this question is going to be starch. Okay. So let us look at the next question. The role of villi in digestive system is to. Okay, what is the role of villi? We know that the villi is present in a large number in the small intestine. Okay, and what would be the function of the villi? One of the major function of the villi, because as you can see, so if this is a surface, okay, and in villi there are some finger-like projections that emerge from the surface like this. If the finger-like projections will emerge from the surface, what is going to happen? The surface area is going to increase. As the surface area is going to increase, the absorptive property of materials. Suppose there are molecules present here. Okay. So they can be absorbed at a higher quantity as compared to a situation like this. So that is why the small intestine is not uniform. So they have finger-like projections. These finger-like projections is going to increase the absorptive property because it increases the surface area. So therefore, one of the function of the villi is absorption of food material. Okay, and that takes place in the small intestine. Okay. So let us look at the next question. Okay. So the next question talks about cecum is large, okay, in rabbit, in humans, dog and tiger. Okay. If you look at all these 4 different organisms, okay, these 3 organisms are carnivorous in nature. That means they eat any other living organism which is like they eat meat based products. Okay, so that they are carnivorous in nature. Okay, whereas rabbit is herbivorous because they only depend on plant based food. These all depend on another animal based, they basically consume animal based foods. Okay, so therefore as the consumption of plant based foods increases, so the cecum, especially which is a part of the large intestine here, okay, it is associated with a large amount of symbiotic bacteria. Symbiotic bacteria. Why these are called as symbiotic bacteria? Because they live inside the human being and they get nutrition from the human, and in the same time they produce a large amount of enzymes which are essentially helpful in digestion of the plant-based foods. As we know that plant-based foods are rich in cellulose, because cellulose is present in the cell wall of the plant. Okay, so as they are rich in cellulose, so therefore they need an enzyme called as cellulase. And these symbiotic bacteria which live in the cecum, okay, they produce this enzyme cellulase and therefore helpful in the digestion of plant-based foods. So they are helping the animal which is consuming the cellulose-based food in digestion, and they are getting also the support from the organism where they are living. Okay, so it's a mutual relationship, and as it is a mutual relationship, so they are called as symbiotic microorganisms or symbiotic bacteria. Okay, so as rabbit is consuming only plant-based foods, so therefore the size of the cecum is going to be larger, so that they can harbor more amount of symbiotic bacteria and which will help in digestion of plant-based food. Okay, let's go to the next question, and this is the last question. Which of the food type digested first in the digestive system? Okay, if we look at the picture of the digestive system here, we consume the food is being chewed in the mouth, and then it goes through the esophagus, okay, through the peristaltic movement of the esophagus, then the food is digested in the stomach, then further it is digested in the small intestine, and then finally it passes through the rectum and anus, okay, the undigested food. But the food product is first digested in the mouth itself by what? By an enzyme which is called as amylase. This amylase is secreted by the salivary glands. Okay, so salivary glands secretes this enzyme amylase, and amylase helps in the conversion of starch to maltose. Okay, so a polymeric sugar is converted into a simple sugar through the action of this particular enzyme, and that happens in the mouth itself. Okay, so the options, if we look at, okay, which of the food type is digested first in the digestive system? So because fat, no, it is not digested in the mouth, proteins are not digested in the mouth, nucleic acids are also not digested in the mouth. So digestion of proteins will start in the stomach and then further in the small intestine. Nucleic acid digestion will only start in the small intestine. Fat digestion will also start in the small intestine, whereas digestion of the starch is going to start in the mouth itself. So therefore the answer is going to be starch. Okay, so this completes the discussion for this particular test series.